If you've been thinking about taking a weekend trip up to Seattle, here's a great reason to go. The Tony-nominated hit Fat Ham is playing the Seattle Rep right now through May 12th. Now, if you haven't heard of it, it's a highly lauded comedic version of Hamlet. It's even won the Pulitzer Prize for drama. Fat Ham follows Juicy, a young queer black man whose father just died. His mother just married his uncle, and then a ghost appears at a family barbecue demanding that Juicy avenge his murder. It's a whole thing. Now, tickets are as low as $20, and you could go grab them at seattlerep.org. And go catch a Mariners game while you're up there. That would be an amazing weekend. Just don't buy a Mariner dog, trust me. Hello, beautiful science nerds. The Association of Science Communicators is hosting Science Week this week in Portland, and there's tons of amazing events going on that you don't want to miss. For example, this Tuesday the 9th, Scott Burns is hosting a wine tasting and terroir talk at Experiment PDX. He'll get into the soil composition and microclimates that make Oregon wine so unique while you drink it. And on Thursday the 11th, Dantes is presenting Chiasm Cabaret, a titillating fusion of burlesque, comedy, and yes, science. And then finally, on Friday the 12th, you can go behind the scenes of the OPB show All Science, No Fiction at OMSI. There won't be burlesque or wine, but Jess Burns and Brandon Swanson, the show's producers, will be there, and they're always down for a good time. You can tell them I said that. For more info on all of these events, head over to associationofsciencecommunicators.org or just check out our show notes.
The Multnomah County Library is one of the busiest library systems in the country. And with a massive bond-fueled construction boom underway, as well as ongoing concerns about safety, there's a lot more going on than just quiet reading these days. Today on CityCast Portland, I'm talking with the library's director, Vali Elke. We're going to get into some of the massive changes coming to libraries across the region, and you'll even hear me try and convince her to become a TikTok star. It's Monday, April 8th. I'm John Notarianni, in for Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. A lot of exciting stuff has been going on with the library system over the last several years. We had that huge $387 million construction bond that passed back in 2020. And like the first big project, the Central Library, has recently reopened. For people who haven't made it back, what's new?
There's a lot that's new. And just if I may sort of correct you, the first big project of the bond was actually our operations center.
Of course.
I forgive you for not calling it the first big project because it's not really a public building. So
the first public-facing project, of course, yeah.
But that was a big and exciting project that sort of heralds a new way of the library circulating materials around the system. Mm-hmm. We're centralizing the collection and the way the collection is distributed across all of the 19, soon to be 20 locations. So it was a big deal to get that building up and running. We're really excited about it. But Central certainly was a really big part of the bond project, the refresh projects. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see Central. What's really, I think, markedly different about the building, it's still the same old beautiful 1913 building designed by A.E. Doyle. And it's really, with the refresh, a reflection of the ways in which people are using that space have changed. We lowered the shelving across the building, and that's for a couple of significant reasons, one of which is to create better sightlines for our staff, to see across rooms and across the building. But even more so is this notion that we're really trying to center the human experience.
Yeah, I saw photos. You can actually see over now, which you think of going to a library, used to having shelves all the way to the ceiling.
Yeah, getting lost.
That's not the case anymore. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so that's really exciting. And we know that so many people in our community are coming into the library to use the internet, to charge their devices. And with the Central Refresh, one of the things that we did was increase the number of outlets.
Yeah.
To really acknowledge that people need a place to charge their devices. It's become, back in 97 when we renovated that building, like Google had just been invented, right? Yeah. So nobody was thinking about, where are people going to charge their Well, we didn't even do we even have smartphones in 1997?
If you need to look something up, you go to the library.
Yeah.
As opposed to going to plug in your computer.
Yeah. And so that's just a little toe in the water of what's different. And a lot of the other buildings that are still in design or, underway, like Holgate's going to be opening this summer.
Mm-hmm.
What you'll see are spaces, again, that are reflecting that human experience, not just the transactional experience of checking out books. We're going to have rooms in these libraries where, 2 people can get together and work on a project, larger rooms where a group of knitters can get together and work on their knitting or have a book discussion group. In buildings like the East County Library out in East County, we're going to have an auditorium.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That seats about 250 people. So people can hear a lecture, they can see a performance, all of those sorts of things. We're going to have sensory rooms for youth and adults, for people who have those sorts of challenges and just need a quiet space. So teen spaces, maker spaces. I could go on.
That makes a lot of sense, though, that, where the library system was 20 years ago and the way people used it, it's totally different now. I wanted to ask, have you thought about putting in a podcast studio?
Well,
maybe if you need an anchor tenant, someone really making waves in the Portland podcasting space. I know some people.
Who could that be? Well, it's funny you should say that, John, because at the East County Library, which will be very similar in size to Central, will be like 95,000 square feet, we're installing an AV studio.
Oh, awesome. Because what I've been hearing from our listeners is people don't read books anymore. They just listen to podcasts to get their news.
Yeah. My wife is a huge audiobook fan, so lots of audiobooks in our family. So and imagine partnering with local groups and bringing in youth in to learn how to record. The opportunities are really kind of amazing.
Yeah. Well, with all of these changes at the library system, with all of this new stuff that's going to be there for people to explore, we've been hearing a lot of stories about what's been going on at the buildings as well. There was a big report that came out. There was an audit that said a lot of library employees felt unsafe at work. And I'm curious what's being done about that. I'm curious how you guys are managing that today.
Yeah, we take that audit very, very seriously. And a lot of the recommendations that came out of that audit, we had already commenced, responses to. The safety and security of both our staff and our patrons is paramount for us. And what I remind people all the time is, libraries are arguably, maybe apart from parks, one of the most public spaces in any community. So everything that happens out in the community happens in libraries. So we have taken a sort of multi-pronged and still evolving approach to how we address some of those challenges in terms of both real safety and perceived safety in our spaces. We have library staff who are security trained. We have contracted staff who are security. We also are really trying to create an environment that acknowledges that the kinds of challenges we're seeing in our buildings are the result of behavioral health issues, mental health issues, addiction issues. And so that requires expertise and skill sets that you don't always get and don't necessarily expect in a security officer. So we have social workers. We're going to be bringing in some peer navigators, people who have that lived experience, help people who are in library spaces navigate the system, figure out how to get resources and help. So we're really trying to approach it from a pretty diverse set of skills and experience to ensure that those spaces are as safe and welcoming for everybody as they can be.
Well, let's break that down a little bit of just what the security protocol is. We had a listener, Paul, who wrote in, and it was just 3 words in caps in the subject line. Are librarians packing? So, Ms. Elke, are librarians now packing heat? Is that?
They're not packing heat.
Okay, sorry, Paul.
There's so much about that you could unpack. That is definitely not the case.
Okay.
And nor are our security guards packing heat.
Yeah, but the one thing that when I was reading the coverage, where there was the story of this audit that came out that said that a number of employees felt unsafe. And of course, these people are on the front lines. They're dealing with the public every day. But I wasn't as aware of the sort of private security component of what's happening at the library system. And I just saw that there was like a new contract that was signed with this company, Intercon, to provide security services across Multnomah County, but also in the library system. Like, how do they interact with the staff? Like, what's the give and take there?
Yeah, and Intercom's brand new. They are just starting. To my knowledge, they haven't been installed in any of our libraries yet, but will be. One of the things that's important to us in a relationship with private security is really ensuring that the folks that they're hiring and charging with securing our spaces are aligned with our values and the way we like to approach customer service and our patrons in buildings. A huge emphasis on things like freedom of speech. Equity is really important to us, wanting to approach things not from a punitive approach, but really, when we interface with a patron who's struggling or in crisis, it's about managing the space and, trying to get control of what might be a situation that's gotten way out of hand. It's not about punishing people. That's not our job. We have a whole system set up for that. So we have an infrastructure within the library that is created just around security. We have something called the person in charge. We have what we call safety coordinators. All of our managers are trained up and our staff in de-escalation training, crisis response training. So it really is this pretty varied spectrum of resources that we bring to bear on managing those environments. And the private security is a piece of it.
I can imagine that it is an exceptionally difficult balance to strike because, like, on one hand, I'm sure you want it to be as accessible to people as possible. But at the same time, you also want people to feel safe in that space. And specifically speaking about private security, like, I know that this isn't necessarily the same company or the same organization, but we have heard a lot of headlines in recent years about private security services in Portland. I'm thinking specifically like in downtown and Old Town that weren't being properly managed and that were doing things that were pretty egregious. I'm wondering how you strike that balance with a security company to make sure that they are living up to these values that the library system has.
Yeah, I think the sorts of things you're describing, John, are really about training and communication. And we're lucky that all of that, the hiring of the contract for those private security officers, the hiring, the training of them, is run through what is a fairly new office at the county, the Workforce Security Office. And those are folks who actually have that deep experience and expertise, as well as, local security, PPB, Gresham Police, and the like, with whom we also partner. We feel really strongly about centering equity, and I'm grateful that the folks at the county, the workplace security folks, understand that's really important to how we manage those spaces.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, I want to talk a bit about the future.
This episode is brought to you by ShipStation. If you run an e-commerce business, you know how much work it takes to produce something great while dealing with complicated shipping issues. That's why over 130,000 companies have turned to ShipStation, an innovative tool that allows you to focus less on shipping and more on building your brand. With ShipStation, you can manage orders, label printing, reporting, and customer service on one easy-to-use dashboard. You'll reduce warehouse costs with reliable enterprise solutions and save thousands on shipping costs with discounts up to 89% off. Plus, you can effortlessly import orders from everywhere you sell online. So, turn your shipping challenges into opportunities for growth. Go to ShipStation.com and use code POD to sign up for your free 60-day trial. That's ShipStation.com, code POD.
Your brain needs support, and new Ollie Brainy Chews are a delightful way to take care of your cognitive health. Made with scientifically backed ingredients like Thai ginger, L-theanine, and caffeine, Brainy Chews support healthy brain function and help you find your focus, stay chill, or get energized. Be kind to your mind and get these nootropic chews at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Well, you've been leading this library system for is it 15 years?
15 years.
And you're about to retire. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We've seen a ton of growth over that time, but I'm wondering, you sit and think about this all day. Like, what do you see the future of the library system looking like, right? Like, are paper books always going to be central to the library?
I think paper books will always be a big part of what a public library provides the community. I'll go back, John, to what we talked about earlier. I think not just Multnomah County Library, but many libraries around the country and frankly around the world are really acknowledging that there's sort of an inherent value in public libraries that's about more than just books. It's about access to anybody despite their identity. I think leveraging that in response to whatever the greatest needs are in a community at the time is what public libraries need to be paying attention to. Sometimes eliminating some services because we really need to invest in this need over here. And that is where the libraries that are going to continue to be impactful and make a real difference in the community, that's what they will be doing. And that's what MCL is doing.
Yeah. What's your TikTok strategy?
My TikTok.
Because have you seen the Milwaukee Public Library and what they're doing on TikTok? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I do. I will say a couple of things, John. I'll be very honest with you. A, I don't use TikTok.
Oh, come on.
I know.
It's the future.
Well, I have an 18-year-old stepson, believe me. I hear a lot about TikTok. And honestly, I'm not sure we have a TikTok account. We have an Instagram account. We have a Facebook account, presence. So I can find out for you if we do.
You've got a couple months left in the job, which is plenty of time to get over to Milwaukee and see what they're doing.
And check it out. Well, John, I think you need to check out our Instagram.
That could be your legacy.
I feel pretty good about my legacy, actually. Sans TikTok.
Sans TikTok. All right. I'll let it pass. Final question. Do y'all still have card catalogs?
Does
that still exist?
We do. We have, in fact, it's central. I was just giving, actually, Suzanne Bonamici a tour of the Central Library not too long ago, and she was enthralled by the big card catalog that we have down there at Central, which it stands out as something you don't see very often anymore. I'll put it
as a relic, yeah.
I'll put it that way. I almost said relic, and then I chose not to. It's still used, sort of, for certain things, but it's, everything's online. We have a catalog that's easy to use and easy to access from anywhere, even when the library is closed. Years ago, I had a coffee table made out of a card catalog.
I'm sure a lot of people do. I'm sure there's a lot of recycled card catalogs floating around out there.
They make good coffee tables.
Yeah. So when a librarian sees someone go to the card catalog, is that like, look at this old timer? Or is it like, oh my gosh, that's the ultimate library hipster?
My hunch is our fabulous librarians would run over in there and say, can I help you? Because probably you're not going to find what you're looking for in your card catalog.
Sorry, that hasn't been updated since 1997.
They are fun to peruse, though, because, back in the day when card catalogs were what we relied on, those librarians, they took all sorts of notes on those cards. And they're actually this wonderful sort of historic record of what people use, how they used it, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, Ms. Elke, thank you for all the work that you've done and are continuing to do. And congratulations on just all the successes that you've had.
Thanks, John. It's been a really great ride. I feel incredibly fortunate to have spent the last 15 years doing what I've done for a paycheck.
And an update to this story. While we were editing this episode, I found out that our producer, Julia, has never seen a card catalog ever in her life. So for the rest of you Gen Z listeners out there, card catalogs are these old, giant wooden boxes full of drawers of note cards that us old people used to use to look up books before computers took over. Just wait until y'all hear about payphones. Well, that's all for us today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening, and a special thank you to everybody who's left us a review recently. It really helps us out. We'd love for you to do it too. I'm John Notarianni, in for Claudia Meza. We'll be back tomorrow with much more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.